So anyway, Rachel, you were starting to say something that sounded like
Well, I
business.
have the proposal pulled up. And I think we just kind of wanted to, because we have an idea of what we're going to do. We've got most of the proposal filled out.
Okay.
I think Michaela and Shelly ended up filling most of it out. But we talked about last time we had a Zoom meeting, a basic idea of what we're going to do. And we just kind of wanted to run it by you to make sure we're on the same page, or like we're on the right track before we turn it in.
Okay. All right.
But basically what we're trying to do.
Can you email it? I can look at it.
It's not let me see. Okay, I think I emailed. I had to like share it with you. I hope that worked because it's a Google Doc. I hope that worked.
Yeah. Did it go to my email address?
Let me see. I hope so. Let me see.
Okay. It hasn't come in yet. I've got this thing about Google Docs. I don't care for it.
Oh. Well, we were trying to come up. I think that was about the easiest way for us to go in and all edit it together.
No, that's fine. It's fine. It's just it's my problem, not yours.
Oh, here we go. This might be easier. Let me see. Okay. I just tried to email at that time instead of sharing it.
Okay. Yeah, here it is.
Okay.
I love this. This is amazing. All right, let's see. What else you got? Do you want to say something about this before I start reading, or?
It's basically we just want to kind of create a way to introduce students to the technology that's necessary for them in finding employment and putting themselves professionally. Because we have a lot of like work. Obviously, we all work with students that are going to be like workforce ready. And while they have the skills they need with their actual program, they don't necessarily always have maybe the best like etiquette when it comes to emails, job interviews, now that everything's online, if they have to do web interviews, that kind of thing. So it would basically just be a way to prep students for a professional way to send an email, how to dress for a job interview, how to speak with people online, that kind of thing. We've kind of had it broken down last time we talked into maybe different levels, like one way you could introduce it to middle schoolers, one way you could introduce it to high schoolers, one way you could introduce it to like adult learners. If anyone else wants to, I don't know, is that an okay way of explaining it?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm sort of scanning through it as I look here. Netiquette, right? Is that a new term, or is that just a term I'm not familiar with, or is that a real term?
I'm sorry, what term was that?
Netiquette.
Netiquette. I've heard of it before. I don't know if it's slang. I don't know if it's an actual
child
word.
there, are you?
Do what?
You're not beating your child there,
No, I was helping him get out of the chair. He's wanting to be nosy.
Hi, buddy. How are you?
Hey, he's chewing his food.
Are you 1 year old?
So, how old are you?
Are you 1?
Say 2.
Oh, 2.
2.
Wow. Is it?
He's got a mouthful.
What's for dinner? That looks great.
He's as cute as he can be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's a cutie.
He's the 4th one, so he's.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he has to find his place in this family.
Yes, he does. I was the baby out of 3. And
Yeah, they see stuff.
it's a blessing and a curse. The time I got to be a teenager, my parents were done parenting basically, and I got to do about anything I wanted.
That's about how I'm gonna be when he's a teenager.
Let's see, what is that? What is it?
I'll do it, okay?
Yeah.
Tell him bye. Okay. Go play. Okay. Are you all done eating?
Okay. What I let's see. Let me go back and that all of the activities where they're going to be assessed are going to be like virtual activities. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that's the plan, right, Rachel?
Mhm.
Amy?
All right. Mhm.
We were thinking it would be like, like mock emails, mock interviews, that kind of thing.
Mhm, mhm.
Problems that we're seeing is the kids are putting their sentences in the subject line. I've had 2 or 3 sentences in the subject line, or however many words they can fit into it,
Mhm.
using not necessarily all caps. I've not seen that, but I've had students send me with like several exclamation marks behind it, and I'm like, that's probably not appropriate. So we
Yeah.
were just trying to see if there's a way we could address those issues.
Yeah. But is there going to be direct instruction involved in this? Or is it going to be like a series of videos would be the basis for instruction, or would there be any opportunity for face-to-face instruction?
We were still trying to come up with a way that, because like I said, we were going to have it addressed to like different levels, because I know, like someone teaches middle school, and they were going to figure out a way how what a good starting point would be for middle school, and then what like for high school students, and then for adult learners. And then we were trying to figure out a way to kind of introduce that to the students. So I guess that's where we're kind of stuck on,
Okay.
what we were still trying to figure out.
Is this a you all are in different schools, right?
Mhm.
But working roughly in the same area, or is this kind of something you've settled on as a group?
I think
Hey,
it's something that we all just in discussing, kind of what we wanted to do, something we just all saw an issue with, especially as we're like dealing with so many online students and everything so virtual right now. It's just something we've all noticed has become a big problem.
Okay. All right, let me think about the problem here for just a second. This is virtual learning that's highlights student deficiencies in areas of digital literacy as it applies to it. Especially as it applies to impacts of adequate employability skills communication. Is it always digital literacy, or is it just literacy?
I think that's probably what we can need to finalize. I think with all of us, it's like, we got out for COVID, and then as, high school teacher, we had 2 weeks of pre-planning, and we were told everything is virtual. Even though we are in classroom, we are told everything has virtual. So it's
Right.
like we are automatically shifted to a digital world. And I think it's interesting to see how our students can prepare for this. And I think that through these, like, for example, my interactive notebook is what I use the first week of school. And in that interactive notebook, they access it through Google Classroom. And the students may have an assignment like email your teacher, 3 minimum sentences, put a subject in the line, like we were saying, close the sentence, and teach the kids there's a shorthand that you use on your phone that is, without any punctuation, which is hard to ever see. But to kind of shift them into a world that is professional and digital. It's new to them, and teachers have all of a sudden just been kind of dropped into this setting. And all of a sudden, I may have 30 emails from students a day, when before email was not a form of communication for us. So I think with CTAE on my end, in employability skills, I know some of that's a standard in across the board, those soft skills, and I think it was a way of applying it. And I guess we can do just the virtual, or it can be in classroom too. I mean, I can showcase the classroom side of it, if we can incorporate that into our research. And it can also be this digital application as well, since that's what all of us are kind of forced, the situation that's kind of forced our hand right now. If that kind of helps make a little more.
Yeah.
Does that help, girls?
Mm-hmm.
Are there how are my right now? I'm just trying to figure this out, and I'm not being critical now. I'm just asking here. How are students going to receive the instruction?
Well, in my situation, I would think currently, if applying it for what an example we already have would be the digital, because even though, like I say, we're in classroom, those that may not be in classroom or completely, the platform is the same. So my platform is Google Classroom, whether we're virtual or in classroom. So I think it's all more of a digital platform.
So tell me a little bit more about how they would receive it. Would it be in the form of an example video, and then some written instruction, and maybe a worksheet, that kind of thing? Or
I see Liz commented in the chat, Nearpod platform, I guess, to use. I haven't ventured out with Nearpod yet, but yes, I think it could be a mixture. I think we could kind of, whether it's in writing or video, kind of step-by-step guidance as to like what's expected. And then, I'm sorry, he's so loud. Losing my train of thought. And then they can like almost demonstrate that by practicing, putting in the subject line, and then their body of their message or whatever.
Would they be like writing a cover letter and resumes and that kind of thing as well?
I think we would eventually get to that, right, girls? What we were thinking is we were trying to think of contextual learning and how they could say that this applies to them or be of interest to them. So we talked about starting at the middle school level and having the tiers like Rachel mentioned. And like the middle school level, maybe we could ask them to send a message to like their favorite celebrity, like in a pretend world, or whatever. How would you want to send a message that you would like to meet them, or you want to let them know whatever? Because at that age, they probably were like, job application, why does that matter to me just yet? And then as we advance the curriculum, maybe, for a job, and then do the cover letter, resume, job application, and stuff like that. Is that what y'all are thinking, guys?
I think
move forward?
I think what we talked about was trying to a way for the student to make like a professional first impression. Because I know a lot of us, we think when we get emails from students that are very unprofessional, I mean, I think we all kind of know. I think you can just tell right off the bat whether or not a student knows how to write a professional email, or you can, frankly, you do kind of judge like job applicants about how their emails come across or how their interviews come across. So I think it's just a way to teach them how to make a good first impression, especially when everything's having to be so digital right now. because
And
like a lot of our students are going to be doing, they're not going to be able to just walk in like and do a job interview. They're going to have to send an email, and then do everything virtually, which is something a lot of, I know like the students I deal with, they're not used to that. They're used to getting an automotive diploma and walking to a mechanic shop and doing a job interview and getting it right then and there. And that's just something that's not happening as much as it used to.
Is there a, this is an area I'm not very familiar with, but is there a standard for like I don't know exactly what to call it, but are there some suggested do's and don'ts for appropriate emailing?
appropriate email, is that what you said, sir?
Yeah, for business appropriate
Mhm.
or
Right. Yeah. I definitely think probably has kind of gotten lost in the shuffle from business technology to, but yes, there are definitely suggested things of, formatting on letters and styles. For example, like was mentioned earlier, not putting exclamation points or inserting, not all caps or something like that. But I think part of it's not only just that formatting that you see, but the process of opening, because a lot of times what it involves, as I mentioned with my assignment, you had to email your teacher. Well, that means a lot of times that's the first time they've ever opened an electronic mailbox, and they learn what compose means and send and all these things. And I think it's the preparation for the professional world. But did you notice Liz's comment about the Nearpod saying that let's see, let me pull that back up.
I probably haven't gotten it for you. Where is it?
Yeah, she said for teaching digital literacy, it will be easy with the Nearpod lessons, and you can do either a self-paced or a live lesson that the kids go through, and it would just be like a set of modules that would, each one of them would encompass one of these employability skills that sometimes get lost in the shuffle from school to professional world. And they may be brilliant, but and do very well in their schools and and wonderful GPA, but then when it comes to something as basic as an email, it can kind of take them back down a little bit, but just because they're not prepared for it.
Where's that discussion in your document? I'm scanning through and I'm not seeing.
I'm glancing through.
So you want us to break down instead of what we're actually doing, you want us to break down the issue more that we're facing.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not quite at that point yet. I'm still trying to get my mind kind of wrapped around but yes, probably a problem.
I think kind of what we're facing is just like we said, we could do it kind of staggered and like different levels or in advancing format. But I know in terms of like, I was discussing with them the last time we had a Zoom meeting, I work with students that have been out of high school for 20 years. They're 45. They don't know how to work a computer. I mean, frankly, like that, I will say it's not as rare, or it's more rare than it used to be. But I mean, it happens pretty frequently working in technical education. We encounter people that want to do hands-on work. They're wanting to do industrial. They're wanting to do mechanical, but they're not good with computers, which is fine in terms of the skills they're learning in class. Like they're mastering those skills, but there's really nothing to teach them. Okay, but when you've mastered your welding, you mastered your automotive, how do you apply for a job? Because they haven't, it's a new format they're just not used to. Everything being digital. So we're really having to start essentially very basic, because even some of the students I deal with might be on the same level or less than someone in middle school. So it's kind of a system that will build on itself. Starting very basic, moving to the whole, like forward through the whole process.
I'm totally on board with the idea here. Right? I think this is I think this is a really, really constructive thing. Uh, and I think it could be really exciting to kind of build some modules
Mhm.
that you could use. And I really like the idea of leveling it, so that you have different levels of sophistication. Um, I given the nature of what I know about truly situated learning, I would say, this sort of falls into the category of something that's a simulation rather than something real. But
Okay.
but given what we can do right now, I think that's, I think we just have to do what we can do. And but I really like the idea of a transportable module
Mhm.
that you could put together, and conceivably all of you could use it.
Mhm.
Um, and So, and I think you could do a combination of videos and written materials and questionnaires and kind of workbook kind of kind of things. Um, the thing I want you that um, I wonder about though is how do we know that um, students how, how will you know when students improve? Well,
Right.
I think it's maybe the experience of actually going through the process of the beginning to end of whatever that module is. For example, since we've been mentioning emails or the resume, before they begin the modules, their resume is maybe on, maybe they have one on print, maybe not, but by the time they finish the modules, they are able to, they know what they're looking for in a resume, what the resume's for, how to present that, how to market themselves in a digital world.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that, I think the completion of the module might show the achievement level of
Yeah.
learning.
What was the certification? I saw something about Microsoft Suite certification. What's that? What's all that about?
Let's see.
It's under what impact will this project have on professional practices?
Well, I know like the school that I work at, we offer like one-off classes through our Economic Development Center on like how to use Excel, how to use PowerPoint, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, but and those are very basic, like beginner level. They're not actual like curriculum that students can enter into. It's like a one-off
Oh,
thing they have to do.
I get it. I get it.
So
Microsoft
those are
Suite.
available. Do
Yeah,
what? Sorry.
I get it. Microsoft Suite, like
Mm-hmm.
like Word,
Yeah.
Excel,
So
yada
so
yada.
classes like
Okay.
that are available, but there's really no place with it, just because I know like in technical college there's a couple like the students start with student success, which is there's like one module on like how to contact your instructors or how to get familiar with the school, but there's really nothing because the curriculum's so quick because they're there for such a short amount of time. There's
Mhm.
really nothing, no basic place to start with how to even like log into your email, how to send
Yeah,
an email, how to,
yeah, yeah.
and I think maybe like a kind of to go back to what you were talking about earlier, how to like test the student knowledge. Maybe the final module, as they work their way through the modules, they create an email, learn to send an email, create a resume. The final aspect could be, and we talked about, maybe their last task could be to set up a mock interview where they would have to email their resume in a professional email, have someone from a company, like a mock company, email them back, schedule an interview, and then they have to log on and do a mock interview.
Mm.
That could be like the culminating task.
Yeah, who would be? I'm not asking you to think too far ahead, but who would be the interviewer in that case? If you did a mock interview, who would be the interviewer?
I mean, it would probably, I mean, if we say we did this with like Amy's students, it would probably maybe me or someone that, since she'd be like presenting the instruction,
So-
probably one of us didn't present it. Or
So-
you're just referring to in general, you're not referring to outside of the group, you're referring to just.
Yeah, well, I'm just asking the question. It seems like if you're the teacher, you probably wouldn't be the person to do the interview.
Could we
Mhm.
bring in, I mean, could we have actual professionals from the community?
Sure, why not? That would be great if you could.
And then that they could give them feedback, you know,
Mhm.
because they know what they look for as an employee, and then the students, it could be more professional, more of a professional feel for them.
Mhm.
Um,
Let me just ask a blue sky kind of question, and I'm not going to hold you to this, but let me just ask the question. Do anyone or all of you know of a company that would sponsor you?
Maybe a career tech. I don't know, like something like GACT or somebody where career tech education, though they have different branches, like I mentioned earlier, each of those have, the employability skills module. So it's across the board that's being taught, no matter if you're teaching welding or
Right.
if it's adult literacy, you're still getting that.
Mhm.
So somebody that kind of covered all of those areas would consider. I don't know.
Well, I was just kind of thinking about what, and I'm just pulling a name out of the hat. What if somebody like H&R Block or would say, we would really be maybe a local franchise of H&R Block would say we'd really be a nice partner for you on this, and we could interview people. We could we could be quote unquote an advisory kind of thing.
That's what I was going to mention. We have advisory committees as CTAE instructors anyway, so we could reach out to some of those members, or they could find us someone.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's a. I don't want to complicate it for you guys because this is difficult enough without kind of adding on layers. But I was just thinking about the authenticity piece. If we get an employer, and who knows if you do a pilot thing, they might like it enough to give you a little money to kind of snazz it up a little bit. I don't know.
And with
Anyway.
us doing it virtually, it could be COVID friendly, so they could do the
There you
interview
go.
virtually and still maintain social
Mhm.
distancing while actually speaking to a real professional from a real company
Mhm, mhm.
once they get to that level.
Yeah, yeah. Come let him sit on my lap for a little while. He and I are about the same mental age, so it worked great. There's a line in here I like a lot. Let's see. This paragraph, I think it's on the second page. Second page, the first paragraph. The curriculum would show educators that there's a way to incorporate more tech-based practices in their general soft skills. So are you thinking of developing this like a module that you could pass to the welding teacher or pass to the auto teacher or pass to the ag teacher to blend into their curriculum?
I think that would be great to be able to use it across the board in any program pathway.
Mhm. That would be really exciting to me. I think I like that idea a lot. Okay, is any of this helping, or am I just confusing things?
No, it's helping. I think we're just trying to make sure that we're
Mhm.
moving in the right direction. We just, I've said this before, I like to kind of talk ideas out, and I think this is helping just kind of make sure we're going where we need to go. So we're
Good.
on the right page.
I just don't want to make this more complicated than it has to be here. Um, um, okay, let me give you some specifics about your proposal that I think that would help me. I think if you would under the either the impact or the opening statement, I really didn't give you a place to really kind of do this, but under the problem section, if you would write up a little paragraph or two that just kind of said, this is specifically what we're going to do, and maybe say we're going to create a little curriculum or a module, or or something like that, and it will have these kind of virtual elements to it, and I think that would kind of help shape the direction of things. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there are a couple of things under. No, I'm down now at the bottom of the second page where it says address the following elements. The content to be taught, and you put in digital literacy and adequate. If you could elaborate on that a little bit, what do you mean by digital literacy, and how does that relate to employability or soft skills? And I think that only needs a sentence or two there. Okay, but just something to kind of. Now, what you have listed in the next question are teaching methods are not really teaching methods. Maybe role playing, and experiential learning might fit in as methods. Problem-based learning is a type of learning. It's not a method. But it's a good thing. And I think the one thing that would that you might want to list somewhere up in here in terms of the impact, or maybe even in your problem in the statement where you're talking about a problem, is a lot of this these activities and skills depend on students being able to think critically. So I think you might want to put a little bit of information about critical thinking up there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then down here, then you can follow that up down in your methods section down there. Then you could say, and also if you want to use problem-based learning, I would put it up there at the top too. And then explain a little bit what you mean when you say problem-based learning, because there's lots of definitions for problem-based learning. So you might want to, and then make sure it relates to situated learning, because problem-based learning and situated learning are not the same thing, but they can be related. Does that make sense? So one of the things I'd like to tell, like if this was your thesis or your dissertation, I would say you need operational definitions for those terms. So when I think about the methods section down here, and the methods we're talking about associated with situated learning, I'm thinking about specific classroom methods, but in this case, the methods that we can carry out virtually. So I would think that you could do you could have a modeling method. You could the old thing about see one, do one. You could give students a model and say, make yours look like this. You could do scaffolding, particularly in a repeated kind of activity where they have to bring it up to a certain level. And then you, at that point, the students bring it up to a certain level, then you model another little piece, which would be a way to scaffold. And then as they continue on, you could fade out of that. So the scaffolding and fading thing could be in place. I like the idea of experiential learning. But I don't know quite how you're going to pull that off. Do you have some thoughts about that?
Could the students begin to give the mock interviews? We asked earlier, first we bring a professional in. Could we then have the students, after they've seen a professional give the mock interview, they could turn around and be the supervisor that's given the interview, and that would give an experience?
Touchdown.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a
Good deal.
yeah. I think that's good. That's better than the field goal. That's a touchdown.
Nice. Just like we're going to have Saturday, right?
Exactly. hopefully a lot of them, right? Have you guys read that book chapter that I sent on teaching and for situated learning?
I think so.
As a model in it, a circular model. We talked about it online last night. Were you guys online last night?
I was last week.
Oh, I didn't get to it.
Circular model.
I didn't get to it last week. That's why that's the problem here.
I've made a note of it.
It's a book chapter. It's in the there's a link to it in one of the modules, but I think it's further down in the course. And
Okay.
But what that model does is that it talks about methods, and it talks about the importance of context, learning, transfer, real context, cognitive apprenticeships. All of those kind of things would be germane to what you're trying to do. So if you want, I'll email you a copy of this book chapter. If you won't tell the publisher, they get a little excited about me giving away free copies of the book or free copies of the chapter. So we have to do this on the QT, right? You won't turn me in. I'm still getting paid royalties on this, so I don't want you to mess up my gravy train.
I'm happy with any textbook I don't have to pay for. I would never.
That doesn't work in my world, kid. Where's my money? You know how much work these textbooks are. Also, let me look at what you wrote about sequence here. Creating a curriculum around 10 key concepts we want to tackle. This curriculum serves as an anchor project within CTAE. I like that a lot. Serve as an anchor project within CTAE with an ongoing tie-in. Ongoing tie-in to what? Different vocational areas? And it's at the very bottom paragraph on page 2. The curriculum is tiered in difficulty, but ultimately can be implemented in a variety of sequences as long as more difficult tasks are implemented later. Ah, okay. I'm going to challenge that idea a little bit. Um, look, a simple. What do you guys think of when you think of sequence, instructional sequence?
The order that elevates you to the next level.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily, but the order. What to teach to whom, right? Would that be a good operational definition of sequence?
Mm-hmm. What to teach to whom. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Now the order depends on some assumptions. You just made the classic assumption, Amy, that you start with basics and move to complex. And that's what we traditionally think of, but that is certainly not the only way that you can think of sequencing instruction. If you'll notice that the title of the module 1 in this class is called the Global Before Local, right? So what I'm doing in that Global Before Local is giving you a little taste, a little thumbnail taste of everything else that you're going to find in the class as you go forward. We call that giving the big picture before you add the details.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of the things in the big picture are really complex issues. They're certainly not simple, but I certainly am hitting you with them early in the class. The other way you can think about sequence is if there's one skill that is going to be common in 4 or 5 different applications across a curriculum, why not teach that skill first or early on, and then when you get to it at the next application of it, you can refer back and say, oh, do you remember when we talked about that skill back, so forth. Here's the same idea, but it has these kind of variations on it. And that's another kind of skill that's called increasing competencies. Or yeah, that's right, increasing competencies. And so that one of the things I just want to challenge you is that you don't have to think about this starting as basic and moving forward, moving to complex. You have some options there. And again, that book chapter is going to give you some information on that.
Okay.
Another good source for that is the reading on this happens when you get old. Cognitive apprenticeships. So if you look at the material on cognitive apprenticeships, cognitive apprenticeship is basically a curricular model, but it's not a complete curricular model, but it's pieces of curriculum, and it has areas of content, it has areas of sequence, it has areas of methodology, and because it's appropriate to situated learning, it's about what's the sociology of the learning place. And so those 4 pieces are really pretty basic to the development of a curriculum or an activity. It's not entirely curriculum. There's other kinds of things that we would think about in terms of a fully developed curriculum, but those are key pieces. And so think about that activity. I like your description here about the community members, experts in digital literacy. See, there's your advisory members and professionals in industries and other kind of things. I thought my wife was coming in. All right, let's see. Only other thing I can say, your APA looks pretty good. It's not 100%. let's see, is that a book? It's a chapter. All right. So your capitalization is not right in the Beckley. The same in the third one. I can't pronounce those names. Nilsuk, whatever. Check your APA on some of those things. Also, APAs are presented in hanging indentions. You know how to do that in Word?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You do?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. The other, and this is probably more important than the nitpicky thing is in there. I feel like because this is a course on situated learning theories, you need to refer to the literature in situated learning theories to support your course. So I don't see anything, and there's nothing wrong with the citations that you've given. In fact, they're great. But sprinkle in material from the course in there, okay? All right.
You've given us a lot of good notes. I need to organize my messy sheet of paper now.
All right.
Thank you.
That's it. I think this is great. I just really think you guys are onto something that's really pretty fun. And one of the things I really like about it, I'm gonna close out your proposal unless you have something else you want me to look at on.
You know, it's it.
All right. The thing I really like about this is it has potential being transportable, which I think is really an exciting thing, you know, and particularly if you kind of develop it so that it fits the Georgia market. I'll bet you there are 2 or 3 dozen vocational programs around the state that would take something like this on, particularly given the circumstances. You're customizing it to the COVID circumstances, which really makes it very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that's marvelous.
And it's an overnight need that all of a sudden we've known this need is there, but all of a sudden because of COVID, we've been pushed into this digital world like that we were already a little bit in, but now it's like hardcore. I mean, and these kids need it or they're going to get lost in the mire.
Yeah. You know, Amy, I just don't think it's going to go away.
I don't need that. I think it's the beginning of a new norm, maybe.
I think we need to be prepared for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now before we go, you guys have to tell me where this background is.
Oh, Lord.
Let's start with the flowers. What are the flowers behind?
Is it lilacs?
No.
That was going to be my guess.
Is that a cactus in the back?
Is it what?
What's that? Is that a cactus in the back growing in the middle of the field?
A what?
A cactus. No.
No.
I just can't see.
Oh. Is there any way you can make me big?
I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what the big plant was in the very back.
Oh, that's a tree.
Oh, it's a tree. Okay.
Well, it's a good sized bush. In this particular, this is not in the United States. So in this particular setting, there are very few trees. Look at the mountains. You don't see trees on the mountainside over there. So that should be a clue.
Is it France?
No. France has trees. I'd like to go back to France. I love it there. In fact, that's where my family of origin is French. French and German. Shelley, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I'm clueless.
All right. All right. It's Iceland.
That was going to be my guess.
That.
You were?
And he kept saying about the lack of trees. I was like, maybe Iceland, but
Mhm.
I'm so fearful I'll sound ignorant.
You say that now, right?
I know, right? I know. It's so easy to say now.
It's Iceland.
Iceland is not anywhere in my brain. That was not gonna be one of my guesses. I'll tell you that.
The flowers are lupine.
I was trying to make sure. I wanted to say Iceland, but I was trying to make sure and remind myself, okay, so Greenland is the one that's not green, and Iceland, even though it's called Iceland, that has the greenery.
That's the
right.
same thing I was like, Greenland or Iceland? And I was like, I don't want to, I don't know.
Well, we were thinking right there together.
Yeah, this is the lupine is an interesting story. You know the story in the United States about how we got kudzu, that it was brought in to control erosion. You've heard that story in Georgia, right? And
In the
it's,
Little Grand Canyon.
and it's so invasive that it just sort of takes off. That's the same thing that happened to lupine. They were having in Iceland. They were having issues with erosion, and so they imported, I believe, from Japan, lupine seeds and handed them out to the population and said, as you drive down the road, throw these seeds out. And this was in July, I think. And it is beautiful. All over the countryside, you'll see these patches of Iceland or of lupine, and it's beautiful. And these yellow flowers in the background are very common in there too. But what
It's a very interesting way to cost control way to prevent erosion, and you have your citizens beautify their surroundings, and you're saving a lot of money for your government.
It is very invasive, though. Apparently, just like just like kudzu. Did you ever hear the story about the this is not necessarily politically correct, but the Yankee that came down to the South to go to a wedding? Do you hear that story? And he and his wife were late to the wedding because they couldn't find the bank of kudzu. It's an old joke, I guess. All right. Anything else that you guys need me to terrorize you about?
Appreciate your insight.
Yeah.
I think we'll go back to the drawing board for a little bit and kind of.
Yeah. When's this baby due?
Sunday.
Sunday. Okay. If I'm saying this, and don't quote me on this, right? Because we have too big a class, so I can't say this out loud. If you needed a day or two beyond Sunday to kind of get your act together on it, don't worry about it, because I've got plenty to grade until I can get to it. So don't be too late with it. But if you need a day or two beyond the deadline, don't worry about it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and stay out of the bank of kudzu.
I'm still pondering that. I have to be honest.
Well, where do you make a right turn at the bank of kudzu, right? Do you make a deposit at the bank of kudzu? No. Oh, Amy, come on, you.
Okay.
She's with it, went over her head. All right, I have a recording of this. Do you guys want the recording?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna cut it off. I'm gonna stop the recording now, so it's not too long. All right, I'll see you guys probably in a couple of weeks in a Zoom. But anytime you need anything, give me a call.
All right. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Anytime.